All right, let's talk about a single, shocking event that revealed something really profound about America. Not just that the country is divided, but that it might be operating in two completely different, totally parallel realities. This single act of violence did so much more than just end a life. It was like a lightning strike that illuminated this deep, deep fracture in the American worldview, one that had been rumbling just under the surface for a long, long time. So, the source material we're looking at calls this event the Quake, the assassination of the prominent conservative voice Charlie Kirk. It was a massive shock to the system for sure, but, and this is the key, as dramatic as that event was, the reactions that followed, well, that's the real story here. And that fracture, it was immediate. I mean, instantly. On one side, you had social media just lighting up with celebration. People saying the world was safer, some even joking that the assassin shot the wrong guy. But on the other side, it was seen as nothing less than a martyrdom, a soldier of God silenced by evil. See, the country didn't just split on its opinion, it split on its fundamental understanding of what had actually just happened. This is where the core metaphor from our source really comes into play. The assassination itself, that's the quick, that initial violent tremor. But it's the aftershocks that truly destabilize everything. These are the waves of interpretation, the clashing languages, and these completely incompatible worldviews that came flooding in right after. And this all points to one big central idea. The two sides aren't just fighting a different battle, they're fighting on entirely different battlefields. And believe it or not, it all starts with the words they use. And this is where you can really see two completely separate operating systems for reality at work. For the left, the war is material. It's about power structures, oligarchs, oppression, and identity. The assassin, a political actor. But for the right, the war is spiritual. The assassin isn't just some person, they're seen as a vessel for the enemy. And yes, they mean Satan, literally. The motive isn't political struggle, it's cosmic warfare. So this linguistic chasm creates our next aftershock. Let's just dig into a couple of specific words that carry immense weight, but have completely different meanings depending on who's saying them. Okay, take the word martyr. As you can see here, it means radically different things. In its original Christian sense, a martyr is a witness who endures being killed. But in some Islamic or revolutionary contexts, a martyr can die while fighting. It's the same exact word, but it's describing three completely different ideas of what struggle and sacrifice even are. The word sin is another perfect example. You have to understand, in a Christian framework, calling someone a sinner isn't really meant to be a personal insult. It's a technical term. It's more like a diagnosis of the universal human condition, this idea that everyone falls short, including the person saying it. But here's the clash, right? For the speaker, saying you are a sinner is an invitation. It means you're human, just like me, and you need grace. But for the listener, especially someone whose core identity is tied to what's being called a sin, it lands as a total rejection of their very being. One side offers a diagnosis, the other hears a condemnation. And you see, even huge institutions like the Catholic Church get caught in this same trap. They might adopt a more welcoming, inclusive tone, but the core rules for full participation in something like communion, they often stay the same. So to an outsider, it can feel like a total bait and switch, an offer of welcome that withholds real, genuine inclusion. And now we get to what the source calls the most jarring aftershock of all, a complete 180-degree reversal in how each side understands the connection between language and actual physical violence. So here's the great inversion. On one side, the mantra is words are violence, that harmful speech is like a physical blow. Yet, when a real bullet is fired, it can be celebrated as a form of justice. On the other side, the logic is totally flipped. Words aren't violence, they're just truth. But a bullet, that is injustice. It's martyrdom. It's proof that their spiritual war is absolutely real. And from that spiritual perspective, this is precisely why assassination doesn't kill a movement. It fertilizes it. I mean, this logic goes way, way back in Christian history. Killing the leader only proves their point and energizes their followers. For them, violence isn't a setback, it's fuel. This is why the source argues it's a mistake to see this movement as just some fragile cult of personality. It's more like a hydra, one that's fueled by a very literal belief in demonic forces. So if you chop off one head, others will just emerge, maybe even stronger than before.
To really get a handle on the stakes here, the source makes a really useful comparison to a more traditional kind of conflict, like the Spanish Civil War. And the difference is profound. Look, in Spain, you had two ideologies, fascists and communists, fighting a material war on a single, shared battlefield. They at least agreed on what the fight was about. Today, it is completely different. One side is fighting a material war against systems of oppression. The other side is fighting a spiritual war against Satan and his demons. They aren't even on the same field.
Which brings us to this really stark conclusion from the source material. We're looking at two Americas, locked in a conflict where one side doesn't even recognize the battlefield, the weapons, or the enemy that the other side sees with perfect clarity. The ground has fractured. The aftershocks just keep rippling outwards, and it all leaves us with a final and, frankly, a deeply unsettling question to think about. What happens when the two sides of a conflict are fighting different wars on different planes of existence entirely?